Uh, Thank you, Warden Herbert Walker. You have 15 minutes to tell us how you're doing there at the prison, what I refer to as the prison work camp.
Yes, ma'am.
So you can introduce yourself, your past experience, and tell us what you want to tell us about the talking points you presented. And George will give you the 5-minute warning when you've been
Okay.
talking for 10 minutes,
All
and
right.
then the 2-minute warning. Thank you, Warden.
All
Thank you.
right. Thank you, everybody. And it's my pleasure and my honor for being on this call. I appreciate the invitation. I too, Miss Blaze, have ties with Virginia. That's where I'm from, actually Lawrenceville, Virginia. So I started out my correctional career in 1998 as a correctional officer for the Virginia Department of Corrections. And throughout several promotions and throughout the years, I found myself working in the private sector, U.S. Marshals contract. I did that for another 12 years. Um, at the end of those 12 years, I did security for the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta for 2 years. And until this position presented itself, and I applied, and here I am at Muskogee County Prison. November will be 3 years in this position. Um, some of the things that I noticed as soon as I got here, one of the challenges that I was presented was, how would I change the public perception of inmate labor? And my response right off the top of my head was to be, everyone needs to be educated on what was going on here. I do understand the history of the facility dating back 20 years or so, and even further, of how they use inmate labor and the stigma that was associated with it being called slave labor. Um, Prior to me getting here, I had never had that challenge before to be able um, to clear up some of the things that was associated with that, and I will wholeheartedly defend what I've done since I've been here in 2001. The numbers have significantly decreased from what was being turned out. The message that I received on yesterday back in 2012, somewhere upwards of 400 inmates going out to work. Um, Last week we were down in the 100 numbers, 180, somewhere around about that number. What I did do is, the mission of the facility since I've gotten here is to change it into somewhat of a programming facility. And I say that because I reached out to all of the local resources that we have here, mainly being Columbus Technical College. And early on in coming into the facility, we reached out to Columbus Tech, and we formed an agreement that Columbus Tech would provide the services for the inmates being housed here. The inmates here have a pretty strict regimen since I've been here, and prior to me getting here, we get them up first thing in the morning. They do their hygiene. We feed them, and then we send the ones out to work. They go to work. We reached out to Middle Georgia Technical College. Although they're not getting paid, every hour that the inmates work now is going toward on-the-job training. The inmates, depending on what work they do, if they are barbers, if they're doing landscaping, if they're working at the government center, it doesn't matter. Whatever the job is, Middle Georgia Technical College is now giving the inmate certificates to put on their file that they can use when they get released from incarceration. We also present those certificates to all of the reentry services now that we've combined. We combine with their work history. We introduced the welding certificate program. The inmates can get, in coordination with Columbus Tech, they get welding certificates now. This class is just like any other class you would get outside of incarceration. And upon completing this class, We give the inmates almost roughly about $1,000 worth of equipment, a welding helmet, the welding gloves, the protective equipment, and so on and so forth, that they can arrange for their families to come pick up the equipment, or we can have it mailed. So when they do go home, they have the certification, they have the equipment, and they have the opportunity to take advantage of the skills that they've gotten when they were incarcerated here. Last year, we started the carpentry certification class. We have a certified instructor come in with the state-of-the-art carpentry truck. The inmates built chairs, they built benches, they built a mini house, and the inmates have bought into what I brought into the facility, and that is, you're going to leave here with some sort of a skill. We celebrate the fact that Muskogee County Prison, and I'm only speaking for myself in this facility, was recognized for obtaining the most GEDs for any county camp in the state of Georgia for 2024. We have on Mondays and Wednesday nights, if you do not have your ID, you can come to class. You don't have to send no request. You don't have to beg. You don't have to write grievances. It's open. Every inmate that does not have their GED is welcome 2 nights a week to come and obtain their GED. We actually have 10 inmates that will be testing on next Monday, and we're keeping our fingers crossed that we can get those numbers up. So we have 4 inmate mentors and teachers' aides that help them, along with our outside GED instructor. And we brag on the fact that, yes, they do work, but when they come from work, we make sure that they're clean, we make sure that they're clothed, and then the opportunity from 6 p.m. to about 9 p.m., there is a course. So if it's law library, GED, anything that we can do, that when the offenders leave this facility, they are in a better state than they are when they got here. I got my associate's degree in criminal justice. I got my bachelor's degree in social sciences. I got my master's degree in public safety organizational leadership. And hopefully by this time next year, I will have my PhD in emergency management in criminal justice. So all of that, saying all that to say, I understand that there is an issue with the stigma associated with inmate labor. But my purpose is that these offenders, no matter what their background is, where they came from, what they're charged with, it's not my concern. My concern is, my mission is that when they walk out of my back door, they are a better citizen going back into society than they were when they came in here. We have inmates that are now being certified to drive forklifts. We have forklift certification. I gave the numbers. 118 inmates have received their forklift certification. Once they get that certification, we reach out to reentry service. Yeah, I'm sorry about this. We reach out to reentry services to see if there's jobs and facilities out there that need inmate forklift drivers. Same thing being said with the carpentry and the welding. There are facilities out there who will hire inmates that they build the fancy grills that you may see on TV, that the big time barbecue pit masters type deal use. And we reach out to those folks to say, hey, we just graduated a class of 20 inmates that have their welding certifications, and they will be looking for employment when they leave out of incarceration. We started commercial cleaning class. If inmates have the ability or the want to start a commercial cleaning, when they leave out, they have that certification on file. And the latest one that we started is Safe Serve Food Service certification. It's a new program that's called InterWorks, where the inmates taught to get their SAVE certification, all of the food service ins and outs. We teach them how to read caloric diets, low calorie, low salt, no salt, 1,300 calorie, 1,800 calorie caloric diets, regular diet, soft diet, you name it. Now, I picked up all these things just by sitting in the class with them. And the inmates, I'm sorry, is that a hand up? 5 more minutes. I was just getting warmed up. And the inmates, yeah, I sit in the classes with them so I can pick up on those things. So I want to boast that, you know, I know there's that stigma out there, and I would welcome anyone to come to the facility and take a tour and sit down and talk to some of the inmates. I have in May, when we celebrate high school graduations out in the community, we also have an inmate graduation here, and we graduated 48 inmates out of all of the different programs and GED, and it's something to see. Many of these offenders that I've talked to have never worked, have never been held responsible, have never been held accountable, and to come here and say that they have received something that they can be proud of. We invite the families to come to the graduations, and they actually take photos with the inmates receiving their certificate. I had one offender that completed the welding class. He was 62, getting ready to turn 63 years old. And I took his picture with him, and he became emotional. And I said, you know, congratulations, is everything okay? And he turned to me at 62 years old and said, this is the first time I have ever graduated from anything. And, you know, I had taken aback because, you know, we take for granted, you know, what we've done over our life. And he was so proud. And when the families come to the graduation, I open up the floor so the families can directly have a minute to address their loved one and tell them how proud they are. So I switched up the whole narrative of what the inmates were accustomed to. I guess that's the Virginia in me, where I'm from, Miss Blas, I said earlier. I'm not a judge. I'm not the jury. I'm not here to make anyone's life any more miserable than what it has to be. I just like to boast on the program that we have implemented here at MCP, and every chance that I get to do it, I make sure I take advantage of it. So, and I appreciate y'all listening to me. 2 more minutes. All right. I see some hand claps. So,
Well, thank you, Warden Walker. We do want to give people an opportunity to ask you questions.
yes, ma'am.
And I will take you up on that tour offer.
Yes,
So members of the Fannie Lou Hamer branch will set up an opportunity to tour the prison with
all
you.
right. Yes,
There may be some folks who come down from Atlanta to be a part of the tour, but are there any questions for Warden Walker? Don't be shy. Well, since we had a couple of people to join us who didn't introduce themselves, so you get a sense of where people are from, I believe Mary White, Nada Farhat, and Joan Goddard did not introduce themselves. So could you please introduce yourself to Warden Walker, who's very busy, and if there are no questions, we'll let him go. But if you introduce yourself to Warden Walker, starting with Mary White, where you're from.
Good afternoon. I'm from Durham, North Carolina, and I have a deep interest in the prison system. have had a godson in the prison system in North Carolina. And I followed him in his years and gave him a place to stay for until he could relocate. So rehabilitation is very important to me in terms of the prison system, as well as a reform of the prison systems so that it is more just and more developing in terms of human capabilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. So if we could hear from Nada and then Joan. Introduce yourself
Hello.
briefly.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. I've listened. I joined in when the gentleman started talking. I'm Nada Farhat. I'm currently in Lebanon. I lived in Connecticut for 42 years. I'm a member of WILF US and the Middle East Peace and Justice Action Committee. And what interested me in this talk, specifically in Lebanon here, we are also facing a dilemma with overpopulated prisons and the lack of resources for these inmates as they leave and they're left on the streets. So this is definitely hits home, and I wanted to listen and thank you. It was very informative, and we should follow through on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Nada. And Joan, please introduce yourself so he'll know that we have another state in the meeting.
Okay, hi. Yes, my name's Joan Goddard, and I'm in the San Jose, California area. And my husband was in federal prison for draft resistance, I should say. He actively turned in his card. But anyway, that was a long time ago. I was very impressed with your all the things that you've managed to get going. And what I wonder is whether you know of other places where they have been actively doing the kinds of things that you've been doing in your area. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for the question, Joan. So Warden Walker, could you answer Joan's question?
Yes, ma'am. Well, you know, we are contracted to house 528 inmates with Georgia Department of Correction, and we're in coordination with Georgia Department of Correction and going to the different institutions. Each institution has its own individual identity. The state prisons, inmates have certification, and some of them have state-of-the-art paint shops, metal working shops. I went to one that the inmates get certified in beekeeping. I mean, you name it. So when they come to me, a lot of the times when we're doing classification, they will come to me and say, they will come to our classification committee and say, these are the skills that I've already obtained in the state, and I want to continue using them. So you're in a state prison, and to come to a county camp is sort of like a step down from being in a larger state facility. We use the skills that they've had here, and I can then recommend those same individuals to go to the transitional center. So when I send them to the transitional centers, they actually can get they get paid for the work that they do. They provide them, each inmate, with a cell phone, and they get a certain amount of stipend a month. I can't remember exactly how much it was, but that's the next step from you going home. So you go state prison, a county camp like I'm supervising, a transitional center, and then hopefully home and never come back again. So that's how it goes.
Well, thank you, Warden. I will keep my promise that we wouldn't hold you longer than 30 minutes. So since we have about 7 minutes left, and I don't see any hands, let me just say,
Mama Teresa, I have my hand raised.
I got one hand.
Oh, go ahead, Tara.
That's okay. Oh my gosh, this is fascinating. I have a million questions, but I'll narrow it down to 3. One is, how did Mama Teresa or George find you? How did you all get connected? The second one is, I'm curious to know if you've come across this cooperative. It's like a prison cooperative. And if you have any thoughts on it. And then the third, sorry, I'll drop another one in the chat. And then the third question is, have you done any research, or has anyone done any research on the recidivism rates of the loved ones who are in your facility?
Okay.
That's a
Well,
lot.
to answer your first question, I was lucky enough to meet Teresa, not her lucky enough to meet me. To answer your first question, she actually was there when I went to my confirmation hearing, and when I walked past, I remember it vividly. She asked me who I was, and I told her that I was the new warden there to be confirmed over the facility. And she said, "Oh yeah, you run that old slave camp over there." And I said, "Oh boy, it's gonna be a rough ride." But my 3 years being here and observing Miss Alameen in the city council meetings and hearing what she brings forth, I know there's 100% passion behind what she does. And when she asked me about coordinating this call, I did not hesitate, and I wanted to make sure that I could clear up some things that was out there and brag on the work that we have going on here at this facility. Being around the federal system with the marshals, you have to learn, even working in Virginia Department of Corrections, you have to learn how to be open to other people's opinion. You have to learn how to accept that, like I said, yes, they did commit a crime. Half of them will say they're not guilty, and I listened to that and I said it's not for me to decide. But as long as you're here, you're gonna be doing something constructive. Part of my studies of my PhD is my study is of reducing recidivism rate from males between the ages of 21 and 27 years old, and returning to those communities where they were incarcerated in the first place, what impact that has on recidivism. So I'm doing a study that I'm also a part of, it seems like. So it's very interesting that, some of the research that
I'm helping you.
some of the research that I've done, how it comes full circle.
I would love to read your dissertation if you could share that with Mama Teresa and the crew when that comes out.
Please believe I want the world to read it when I'm done with it. Anybody else?
Thank you so
Oh,
much for
I'm
your work
sorry.
and for sharing.
I was just talking. So Pam Albright is next, and
Okay.
then we want to hear from Lydia Diamond. I didn't realize I was muted, but we promised Warren Walker we wouldn't take up too much of his time because it is a really, really busy job. So Pam Albright, do you have a question?
Well, I didn't really. I guess I do have one that just comes to mind, which is I'm wondering, Warden Walker, if you know of other states who have similar programs. I mean, I'm not aware of anything like that going on in Pennsylvania. But I'm not. I'm kind of new to the whole area. That seems very unique to me.
Yeah. When I was in the private sector, I was up. I visited George W. Hill facilities in Philadelphia. I think the state recently took it back over. It's about 2,000 or more incarcerated offenders there, and I'm not sure about the Philadelphia system. For the North Carolinians, my mother's side of the family is from Henderson, North Carolina, and a part of my drive is my grandfather passed away in prison in North Carolina. He was charged. My grandfather passed away in prison in North Carolina.
So sorry to hear that.
Yeah, he was charged with homicide. He was defending his home. Someone was breaking and entering into his home, and he protected his home and his property. But unfortunately, the person that broke in was trying to run away, and uh, he protected himself by discharging the round into his back. And so he was found guilty of homicide, and that's where he passed away at. So North Carolina, Virginia, all the way up the East Coast, I'm familiar with. Like I said, I'm from Virginia, and when I came to Georgia, I brought a lot of that Southern charm with me, and was able to meet people and bring my vision into fruition when I came here to this facility.
Thank you, Warden. So Lydia Diamond, I'm so glad you can join us because she has firsthand experience with the prison system. So Lydia, would you please introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, all. My name is Lydia Diamond. I am 61 years old. I'm formerly incarcerated. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. I came to Vermont in 1994, and I went to prison in 95, 96. I got out in 97. And to God be the glory, I haven't looked back. Prison is horrible, period. And there are way too many of us locked up and in recovery. I've been trying to make sure I never go back to prison. It was a traumatic experience. I have a young woman, 22 years old, one child, and she's facing a murder charge right now here in Vermont. Here in Vermont, where they have one prison which is inhabitable, and they want to build a new prison for women, which makes no sense whatsoever. The money that they spending to build the millions that they putting into a new prison, there's no money and resources to keep families whole, to keep women out of prison, giving them the resources. They haven't been given resources to maintain, to support their families, childcare, healthcare, mental health care. It's just.
Thank you, Sister Lydia. Well, Warden Walker, we are going to let you go because we have a few items we need to discuss among ourselves, Warden Walker.
Well,
But I will be back in touch with you. Will you be?
If I could
Warden
speak
Walker,
to something that Lydia just said,
go right ahead.
I got a minute.
Go right ahead.
I appreciate her sharing her story with us because when I hear stories like that, even my inmates that have left this facility, they have requested, and I have requested them to come back and share their story. I had one that was recently released. Well, not recently, about 2 years ago. He went through my barbershop, OJT, and he called me back to tell me that he had opened up his own barbershop. He had got married, and the success story. I had a appreciation to City Council luncheon here at the facility about 2 years ago, and he was my keynote speaker. I invited him to come down and share his success story with the staff, the inmates, and the city council members that did attend. And the last one, we have a OJT for the inmates that work at the golf courses. He is now managing the very golf course that he was working at as an inmate. So
Wow. Now that is unusual.
Yes, ma'am.
So thank you, Warden. And I may see you at City Council meeting tomorrow morning. Will you be there?
I wouldn't miss it.
Well, I'll see you because I'm going to be singing your praises to the mayor and everybody.
All right.
So thank you.
I'll
See you
then.
tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody.